When I was a tiny ballerina, I had a teacher who had an iron grip. Her expectations were unyielding, her correction sharp and unwavering. Every imperfection was critiqued in a way that would linger. She was all sharp eyes, cutting words, and an unshakable belief that perfection could be bullied into existence. To her, nothing was ever good enough. Your derriere was too big. Your turnout was never open enough. Your ribs were sticking out like bird cages. Her solution? To squeeze, tuck and hide. We'd spend hours at the bar trying to squeeze our bums so hard that you would think that the future of ballet depended on it. And the irony, of course, was the harder we squeezed, the bigger our muscles grew. And the bigger that our muscles grew, the more she would snap at us to tuck our tails under. The tucking had its own problems. Our ribs would flare out like sails on a boat. And then we'll be scolded for that too. Movement, grace, forget it. All that beautiful flow of ballet was lost in the chaos of trying to fit an impossible mould. She didn't believe in teaching ballet. She believed in finding ballet bodies, ones that were perfect. If you weren't one of the chosen few, you were doomed to eternal squeeze, tuck, purgatory. It wasn't until I started teaching ballet myself that I understood just how flawed her approach was. Ballet isn't about punishing the body, it's about celebrating it. Everybody has potential if you nurture it properly. That experience shaped my philosophy as a teacher. Instead of breaking students down, I focused on building them up. I encouraged progress, and instead of squeezing and tucking, I taught them to move naturally, finding grace in their own unique ways. And there were so many teachers that had their own philosophy on what ballet should be. And sometimes I wonder if they were all just trying to get us to give up. One teacher in particular had this obsession with core strength. She told us we needed to suck our stomachs in to activate our core muscles. It was supposed to make us more graceful, I guess. But what actually happened? We all looked constipated. Every one of us trying to suck our stomachs in as hard as possible, not realizing we're essentially pushing our stomachs up into our lungs so we couldn't breathe at all. And then when we would get caught struggling for air, they would say, "You don't understand your core properly." So we were supposed to have all this tension in our core to make us look more graceful? Were we supposed to dance like we were being squeezed into a corset of elegance? It was such a mess. And in the end, no one had any breath for their performance. Then there was this teacher obsessed with the deep plie, would spend hours trying to bend our knees until they were practically touching the floor. And then the next thing we had to do was a complete opposite, standing on our toes. It was like if we tortured our Achilles tendon long enough, would unlock the secret to ballet. And the Asian dancers that could have their knees almost touching the floor in the deepest squatting plie, they were told not to go that deep. There was like this bizarre double standard. And don't even get me started on the teacher that had an unhealthy obsession with music. She wanted us to hear the beat exactly how she did. If we felt the emphasis on a 2/4 or a 3/4 on the first beat, forget it. We had to hit the second or third beat, no matter what our bodies naturally felt. Looking back at all those teachers, how flawed their methods were, taught me something important. I'm writing advanced clinical hypnotherapy scripts. For trauma is a little bit like a tutu. Layer upon layer upon layer to fit a beautiful garment. So today I'm going to take you through a bit of a tutu, focusing on trauma. And if you've studied trauma in clinical hypnosis and strategic psychotherapy, you'll know that there are some components that we look for in trauma, some key factors. Anxiety. Many survivors report anxiety, which can create a heightened sense of vulnerability. Intrusive thoughts. These are unwanted or distressing memories. Flashbacks that can play without warning. feeling trapped or injustice. Survivors may feel powerless, trapped in their situation, hold on to a sense of injustice. Physical reactivity. The body may experience heightened stress responses, such as tension, irritability, a startled reflex, the body's attempt to stay on guard. Belief in imagination. As you know, many engage in worst-case scenarios, often projecting fears or disaster-like situations to unrelatable events. There are avoidant coping styles to shield themselves from distress. Survivors may avoid places, people, situations that remind them of the trauma. And past orientation. Survivors can get stuck in the past, reliving events, which can sometimes signal depression. So those are the key factors that we look for as clinical hypnotherapists in strategic psychotherapy for trauma. So when I'm writing for clinical hypnosis and trauma, I just pick one of those factors. And today I've chosen belief in imagination, which is where they might engage in worst-case scenario thinking. And because it's trauma, the type of hypnotherapy script that I will choose to use will be a generic structure of a critical incident process, which has an induction, establish anchor to comfort, age regression to context, exploration of context, elicit affective associations, identify central distortions, catharsis, disassociation affect, dimensional shift in representation, reframing, restructuring focus and memory content, amplification of alternative representations, age progression to new resource, post-hypnotic suggestions for future accessing, and reorientation. So that is the general structure of a critical incident process, which I will use for trauma, specifically belief in imagination. Let's start with the induction. So for me, I just choose a really simple hypnosis induction, a yes set, which is like 3 truths and 1 lie. The first truth, notice how you breathe in and out. The second, there is only this moment. The third, you already know how to breathe. So there are 3 truths, and then a suggestion. Embrace it as you go deeper into this experience. So I'll write maybe 3 or 4 of those. So second, sense your body's contact with the chair. True. Notice the support of the chair. True. Let your chest rise and fall. True. As you deepen your sense of tranquility. Suggestion. You've known all along how to breathe. True. Everyone breathes right. True. Sooner or later, everyone discovers their charisma of breathing, or discover your breath. True. Suggestion as you go deeper into this experience. So that's 3 sets of a yes set, or 3 truths and a lie, 3 yeses and a suggestion. So the 4th one, you're a natural at breathing. You already know how to get physically comfortable. You already know how to breathe as you sink into this wonderful moment. Suggestion. Perfect. But that was pretty basic. So what I do is I go through and I have a little formula. I use an indirect question or phrase, plus an if or whether, plus a subject, plus an auxiliary verb, plus a main verb, plus an object or content. And you can probably see on your screen that I have that for you in brackets, that particular formula. So then it sounds like this. Have you ever noticed how your breath naturally flows in and out? Have you observed whether this moment is unfolding for you? Have you realized how to already let your breath guide you effortlessly? Could you embrace it as you let yourself go deeper into this experience? Have you sensed how your body makes contact with the chair beneath you? Have you noticed whether the chair gives you gentle support? Have you felt how your chest naturally rises and falls? Have you wondered how this deepens your sense of tranquility? Have you considered how you've known all along how to breathe? Have you thought about how everyone breathes just as you do? Have you discovered it sooner or later? Everyone recognizes the charisma of their own breath. Have you wondered whether this wonderful experience is one you've created for yourself? Have you noticed you're skilled naturally at taking slow, deep breaths? Have you realized you already know how to find physical comfort? Have you thought about how you already know how to breathe with ease? Have you wondered if sinking deeper into this moment feels just right? So that's the induction. It's sort of good so far. So for the second stage of the general structure of the critical incident process, we get to establish anchor to comfort. Now, because it's trauma, I want to go down memory lane, but I don't really. So my take on this is to try and just get them to think with a child's brain rather than a specific memory. So something really simple like, remember when we were kids, our brains thought the silliest things ever, like how the moon was following us because it liked us the best, how our teachers lived 100% inside the school, probably slept under the desks. Did chocolate milk come from brown cows? Remember thinking if you held your breath long enough, you could be a fish? We believed that closing our eyes made us invisible. You can't see me, right? On the things that made us laugh, how farts were the funniest things on earth, and how just pulling funny faces or blowing raspberries could send us into giggle fits. Pets chasing their tails, or cats falling off the couch, gold comedy. And don't forget our toys pretending to talk to each other. It was all so funny. Our tummies would tickle with giggles until milk would come out of our noses. To have a kid's brain again. So what I'll do with this section to make sure that I engage both the right and left hemisphere of the brain to ensure that they're in a deep trance is I'll apply kind of a formula, which are hypnotic suggestion structures and styles, generic forms. So direct suggestions, you can do X. Indirect suggestions, I knew someone who was experiencing doing X. Authoritarian styles, you will do X. Permissive styles, you can allow yourself to do X. Negative styles, you can't not do X. Or content suggestions, like you can experience this specific memory, sensation. Or process suggestions, you can have a specific experience. And post-hypnotic suggestions. Later, when you're in a situation A, you can do X. So applying that to establish anchor to comfort, it sounds like you can remember when we were kids, our brains thought the silliest things ever. I knew someone who thought that the moon was following their car because it liked them the best. You will remember how sure we were that chocolate milk came from brown cows. You can allow yourself to laugh at how we believed that teachers lived at school and probably ate chalk for dinner. You can experience the joy how holding your breath would turn you into a fish. You can't help but smile when you think how we believe that closing our eyes made us invisible. You can experience the sensation of laughing so hard. Your tummy tickled until milk came out of your nose. You can have a specific experience of remembering how we laughed at how pets chase their tails. And later, when you see a cat fall off the couch, you can recall how funny it seemed when we were kids. So then I get to the third section of the induction, age regression to context. And because it's trauma, I sort of do this in a disassociation way. And people have all sorts of things that they do for disassociation. They try and create a out-of-body experience, like imagine you're floating up out of your body and sitting in a couch. But you really want to get the person that's had a traumatic experience to really be disassociated from their current situation. And then that gives you the capacity to reassociate them to a better way of going about things. But to create that distance for them. And I'm always inspired by a wonderful book by Bill Bryson, A Short History of Nearly Everything. So my initial paragraph might look something like this. In order to create age regression to context using disassociation. Welcome, congratulations, you made it. Wasn't easy on this journey, I can tell you that much. In fact, it was probably more complicated than you ever realized. You see, to be here today, an almost incomprehensible number of atoms had to align in a precise, almost meticulous pattern to make you you, to create you. This exact combination of particles has never happened before and will never happen again. For the years that you are here, and we hope it's many, these tireless, minuscule bits of matter will work tirelessly to keep you together, allowing you to live this wonderful and strange experience called life. Here's the thing, though your atoms don't care about you, they don't even know you exist, they're not aware of your purpose or your own being, they're simply mindless pieces of matter doing their thing without any awareness. It's alive, yet it all once made you who you are, and despite its mindless nature, for the duration of your life, these atoms will work together, driven by the singular goal of keeping you intact. The bad news, this devotion doesn't last forever. Even a long life adds up to only about 650,000 hours. One day, without warning, your atoms will cease their work, quietly disassembling and moving on to something else. And just like that, you'll be no more. But here's the thing to remember. What's happening to you right now is incredibly rare. Most of the universe doesn't get this chance. The same atoms that form you here on life on Earth don't bother anywhere else. It's strange and a beautiful thing to live at all. So take a moment to appreciate this bizarre, fleeting miracle, because as improbable as it seems, it's happening to you right now. So what I apply to this section is truisms. Things like everyone, you already know how to, some people, most of us, it's a very common experience, everybody, you've known all along how to, there was a time when you didn't, sooner or later, everyone, in every culture, it gives everyone a sense of pleasure. It gives everyone a sense of pleasure too. So then it ends up sounding more like this. Most people don't realize how incredible it is that they're here. Everyone has a unique story, but the chance of all the right atoms aligning to create you is a beautiful miracle. You already know that life is full of surprises, and the fact that you're here today, breathing and thriving, is a true testament to the wonders of existence. You already know how to face challenges with resilience and grace, and when things aren't perfect, some people may search for answers, but most of us are simply savoring the experience of being alive. It's a very common experience to feel amazed by how far we've come, and everyone has something special to offer in this world, even if they don't realize it. You've known all along how to adapt and grow and embrace the journey. There maybe was a time when you didn't fully appreciate the magic of your existence, but now you can see that you're part of something magnificent. Sooner or later, everyone realizes that they're unique, an irreplaceable part of the grand universe and its story. Sooner or later, everyone learns to embrace the preciousness of their time here. In every culture, people might find joy in the miracle of life, knowing how rare and extraordinary it truly is. Gives everyone a sense of fulfillment to recognize that against all odds, they're living in this incredible, beautiful adventure. So take a moment to celebrate this amazing, vibrant miracle of you, because you're exactly where you're meant to be. So then I move on to the fourth section of the critical incident process, or the generic structure of the critical incident process, which is exploration of context. And the context is trauma, and the specific key factor of trauma isn't past orientation or intrusive thoughts. I'm going for belief in imagination. where the mind may engage in worst case scenario thinking. So I start with a simple paragraph like, I know how overwhelming it can feel when your mind starts running wild, especially if you've experienced trauma. It's like your thoughts take on their own life, imagining worst case scenarios that can feel almost too real. Your mind might start projecting those fears onto things that aren't even connected. Something like a missed call means something catastrophic might have happened. It's easy to feel like the world is constantly on the verge of disaster, and that can be exhausting. I want you to know that these factors aren't your fault. They don't define the reality of your situation. Your mind is simply trying to protect you, even if it's doing it in a way that doesn't feel necessary. It's okay to acknowledge these feelings, but remember they don't always reflect what's going on. It's possible to heal, to calm these thoughts, to reconnect with the present moment. You're not alone in this. Time and support is absolutely possible to find peace again. So then I will change it to not knowing and not doing. So I'll change it to you don't have to, it isn't necessary to, it isn't important to, you don't need to without knowing it. You don't need to be concerned if, just allow it to happen. Without really trying, it will happen all by itself. But because it's trauma, I don't sort of want to say, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that, because it's too associated to their body. So I'll keep the disassociation. We've just been talking about the universe and the miracles, the universe in the previous section, creating disassociation. So I'll start it with, I knew someone once, to keep it away from them. I knew someone once who didn't know how to make their mind stop racing, especially after experiencing trauma. They didn't know that they didn't have to let their thoughts control them. And without realizing it, they allowed themselves to get caught up in these worst case scenarios that felt far too real. They didn't need to believe that something small, like a missed call, meant that something catastrophic had happened. It wasn't important for them to figure it all out right away, without judgment, was all they needed to do. Without even trying, their mind started to find balance. They didn't need to be concerned if their mind felt out of control sometimes. Just allowing it to happen without resistance. Without even trying, their mind started to find balance. It just happened little by little, all by itself. And as they learned to ground themselves in the present moment, healing took time. But they eventually realized that peace could come again. So that's roughly how that fourth section sounds. So piecing it all together, what it sounds like so far, the induction. Have you ever noticed if your breath naturally flows in and out? Have you observed if there's only this moment unfolding before you? Have you realized how easy it is to let go of your breath effortlessly? Could you embrace it as you let yourself go deeper into this experience? Have you sensed how your body makes contact with the chair beneath you? Have you noticed whether the chair offers a gentle support? Have you felt how naturally your chest rises and falls? Have you wondered whether this deepens your sense of tranquility? Have you considered that you've known all along how to use your breath? Have you thought about if everyone breathes just as you do? Have you discovered that sooner or later, everyone recognizes the charisma of their own breath? Have you noticed how naturally skilled you are at these slow, deep breaths? Have you realized you already know how to find physical comfort? You already know how to breathe with ease? Have you wondered sinking into this perfect moment feels just right? Can you remember when we were kids and our brains got caught up in the silliest things ever? I knew someone once who thought the moon was following their car because the moon liked them best. Do you remember how we thought chocolate milk came from brown cows? You can allow yourself to laugh how we thought that teachers probably lived at the school and ate chalk for their dinner. You can experience the joy of thinking that holding your breath would make you turn into a fish. You can't help but smile When you think of how we believed that closing our eyes made us invisible, you can experience that sensation of laughing so hard that your tummy would tickle. You can have a specific experience of how we would laugh at things, like pets chasing their tails. Later, if you see a cat fall off the couch, you can recall how funny it seemed when we were kids. Most people don't realize how incredible it is that they're here. Everyone has their own unique story, but the chance of all the right atoms aligning to create this beautiful miracle, life, you already know that life is full of surprises. And the fact that you're here today, breathing and thriving, is a true testament to the wonders of existence. You already know how to face challenges with resilience and grace, even when things aren't perfect. Some people may search for answers, but most of us are savoring this experience of being alive. It's a very common experience to feel amazed by how far we've come, and everyone has something special to offer the world. Maybe there was a time when you didn't fully appreciate it, the magic of your existence, but now you can see you're part of something magnificent in the grand universe of time. Sooner or later, everyone learns to embrace the preciousness of being here. In every culture, people find joy in the miracle of life, knowing how rare and extraordinary it truly is. It gives everyone a sense of fulfillment to recognize that against all odds, they are living in this incredible, beautiful adventure. So take a moment to celebrate the amazing, vibrant miracle of you, because you are exactly where you need to be. I knew someone once who didn't know how to stop their mind from racing, especially after experiencing trauma. They didn't know that they didn't have to let their thoughts control them. Without realizing it, they allowed themselves to get caught up in the worst case scenarios that felt too real. They didn't need to believe that something small, like a missed call, meant something catastrophic had happened. It wasn't important for them to figure it all out right away. They didn't need to feel concerned if their mind felt out of control sometimes. Just allowing it to happen without resistance, without judgment, was all they needed to do. Without even trying, their mind just started to find balance. Just happened, little by little, all by itself. And as they learned to ground themselves in this present moment, healing took time, but they eventually realized that peace could come again. So that's the first 4 sections. So it's sounding pretty good. And I know that you probably want me to continue on with the next sections of the general structure of the critical incident process. So remember, we already covered the induction, establish anchor to comfort, age regression to context / disassociation, exploration of context. So what would come next would be elicit effective associations, identify central distortions, catharsis, disassociation affect, dimensional shifting of representation or reframing, restructuring of focus and memory content, amplify alternative representations, age progression with new resource, post-hypnotic suggestion for future accessing, and reorientation. But I won't do that. Instead, I'll explain what I do as the final layer, because we haven't talked them through the hypnotic experience. Because while we've gone through that structure for the hypnotist, the listener will be going through a hypnotic experience. And we have to talk them through that. I mean, you don't have to, but once you start to talk directly to the listener about their hypnotic experience, it's like talking to the voice inside their head. So you might start to say, and about now you might be feeling lighter, and in the back of their mind they're thinking, how did you know that? I am feeling lighter. Talking you through the experience of hypnosis. The experience of hypnosis is experiential and selective absorption of attention, effortless expression, experiential non-conceptual, involvement, willingness to experiment, flexibility in time and space, relations, alterations of perceptions, fluctuations in degrees of involvement, motor or verbal inhibition, trance logic, reduction in reality testing, symbolic processing, time distortion, spontaneous amnesia. So that is the hypnotic experience. So when I overlay the hypnotic experience, I will start with the first section, the induction, and in this section, I have put an additional layer on the tutu, on the trauma tutu, of experiential and selective absorption of attention and effortless expression applied to the first section, induction. So now it sounds like, notice how your breath flows in and out naturally with ease. Isn't it interesting how this moment unfolds effortlessly, just as it is? You might realize you already know how to let your breath guide you gently. What if you could simply allow embracing this, allowing yourself to go deeper into the experience? Sense the way your body rests on the chair beneath you. Doesn't the chair provide steady, gentle support without you even needing to ask? Feel the natural rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. Can you imagine how this rhythm might deepen your sense of tranquility, naturally, effortlessly? You've always known how to use your breath to center yourself. Everyone breathes just as you do, in their own perfect way, don't they? Sooner or later, people discover the charisma of their own breath. Could this calm, beautiful moment be something you've created for yourself? Recognize how skilled you are at taking focused, deep breaths. You already know how to find comfort in your body, don't you? Breathing with ease is something you've always known how to do. Doesn't sinking into this moment feel absolutely right? So that's applying the experience of hypnosis to the induction. Now I'll apply the experience of hypnosis to the anchor to comfort. The particular experience of hypnosis, which should be what they should happen next, which should be what they will experience next, which will be experiential, non-conceptual involvement with a willingness to experiment. So then it sounds like, remember when we were kids, when everything felt magical and hilarious? I knew someone once who believed that the moon would follow their car like a loyal friend in the sky. Do you remember how crossing your eyes made you giggle? You might let yourself laugh at the thought of teachers living secretly at school, eating chalk for dinner. Can you feel the excitement of imagining holding your breath could turn you into a fish? You can't stop yourself from smiling when you recall how closing your eyes made you feel invisible. Picture yourself laughing, your tummy all tickled. Let yourself remember how watching a pet chase its tail was the funniest thing in the world. Later, when you see something silly, let it spark that carefree giggle, that feeling you had as a kid. So then to the third section. So that sounds good, a little better, needs some work, but that's roughly what I do. Then the third section, age regression to context, disassociation. I would then add a layer of the experience of hypnosis. So my layer to my tutu would be the flexibility and time-space relations, alterations of perception. Most people don't fully grasp the sheer magnitude of what it takes to be here right now. The precise alignment of atoms that traveled across the expanse of time and space. To create you is a breathtaking miracle. Think of it. Every tiny moment in history, every decision, every seemingly insignificant event led you to this very moment where you are, breathing, experiencing existence, life. And yet we often forget how extraordinary it really is. It's almost as if time itself is a river flowing towards this instant, everything emerging into one singular now. You already know how unpredictable life can be, don't you? The chance that you're here, in this exact form, with this unique perspective on the world, is a rare and beautiful convergence. Every day feels like an unfolding mystery, a blending of past experiences, future possibilities, and the infinite now. Time shifts when you allow yourself to truly feel the present, to witness how everything is aligned in ways that you'll never fully understand. And yet you are here, alive, vibrant and aware of your place in this vast cosmos. Some people spend their whole lives trying to decipher the secrets of time, searching for meaning in the spaces between moments, but most of us simply learn how to savor this experience of being alive, letting time stretch and warp, feeling as though moments can last forever or slip by in an instant. It's a common experience to realize how far you've come, how time has unfolded around you, past, present and future seem to converge, all pointing to the extraordinary person that you are now. You've known all along how to embrace the flow of time, even when you weren't aware of it. You are adapting, growing, shifting with the rhythm of life. There was a time when you didn't realize how interconnected you were with everything around you, how tiny changes you make ripple through time and space. But now you can see it clearly. Of your life, the moments of your life are not linear. They twist and turn, opening up new possibilities as you move through them. You are a thread woven into the fabric of the universe. Your unique experience is what makes this grand tapestry come alive. Sooner or later, everyone comes to understand they are essential of this expansive journey, a piece of a vast puzzle that holds the universe together. Time seems to stretch into moments of realization, as if the entire scope of experience is revealed to you, all at once. In every culture, there are teachings that speak of the magnificence of life itself, the idea that, despite the uncertainty of time, you are here for a reason, part of something bigger than you can comprehend. Gives everyone a sense of deep fulfillment to recognize that they are living in this magnificent adventure and that the moments they occupy in space and time are theirs to shape. This understanding doesn't come from the rush of time, but from the stillness within it and the quiet realization that every instant is precious, every experience is valuable. So take a moment to pause on how extraordinary it is that you're here now. You've always been a part of this miracle, and you always will be. The universe has conspired to make you exactly who you are in this moment. There's no other place that you could be. Time has aligned for you, and it's perfect. And then finally, and so I'm only doing this to the first 4 sections, that we're up to the 4th section, the exploration of content of the generic structure of the critical incident process of hypnosis. I'm on the 4th section, exploration of context, which is trauma, this key factor of trauma, belief in imagination. And to that section I'm going to apply where they should be up to in the experience of hypnosis, fluctuations in degrees of involvement, motor and verbal inhibition. So that's a bit where it feels so good not to talk, not to move. You guys know the stuff. So this is what it now sounds like. And I can be a little bit more specific. It feels so good not to talk, not to move, but you know you can, but it feels better not to. I knew someone once who didn't realize the power in letting their thoughts come and go without forcing anything. After trauma, their mind would race, pushing them into constant motion, both mentally and physically. They didn't know that they didn't have to keep speaking or talking or thinking through everything. In fact, there was a time where they couldn't stop themselves from talking or moving, as though action itself would somehow bring clarity. But they didn't need to do all that. They didn't have to be so involved, so active in every moment. It wasn't important for them to keep thinking, to keep reacting, to keep moving. They slowly learned they didn't have to force their mind to slow down. Little by little, without even trying, they started to feel more relaxed, more simply to be. They realized they didn't have to respond to every passing thought or feeling. They didn't need to speak every time they had something to react to, or every little shift inside. And in those moments of letting go, when they didn't push themselves to be constantly active or involved, they felt something shift. There was a stillness that began to settle in, like a pause between breaths. Their mind didn't have to do anything more than what was necessary. No need to say anything to fill the silence. No need to move. When staying still felt right, it was as if a gentle inhibition of action. They allowed a deeper kind of healing to happen. Without trying, they began to feel the natural flow of their thoughts and emotions without forcing them. It was a soft release. And in that quiet, they began to heal piece by piece, embracing the absence of effort. It wasn't about doing more, it was about doing less, allowing their body to relax, their mind to settle, their words to become fewer. They found the space for peace to emerge. The fluctuation of how involved they needed to be was like the key. Sometimes the greatest healing comes in letting go of the need to do anything at all. And so I'm going to leave it there, but that was a behind the scenes or a small insight into the layers of the tutu. I created this video in hope that clinicians will get something out of it in supporting their clients with trauma. If you have any questions about layers of the tutu, let me know, and have a fabulous day, because you're perfect just as you are.